want to talk briefly just about how we live day to day, trying to be obedient to all the commands that we find in the Bible, right? We're faced with them every time. Every time we read our Bible, do a Bible study, listen to a sermon, attend a small group, the commands come up, right? The commands come up. So let's think about it this way. I have this little graphic. Let me switch the graphic right here. Here we go. So here we have the command, the principle. Whatever command you want to mention. I always think of the one, husbands, love your wives like Christ loved the church. Between me and that command, this gap between me and trying to keep the command. So here's why this is important. We're going to be living in that gap our whole lives. That's where we're going to be living. If you're honest and you think about it now completely, we're going to be living in that gap our whole lives, living imperfectly, because we're not going to be perfectly living up to any of that stuff. How can we live in that gap then? So that becomes the question. How are we going to live in that gap with all that imperfection, with messing up like that all the time, with some peace, with some joy? How are we going to live in that gap with all that imperfection and still be in community and in service to one another and to the world? I was going to say something else, but there are many commands, and we're not going to be getting them all right all the time, anytime soon. We're going to live in that gap our whole lives. We put it a different way. We are never going to be able to keep those commands in our own strength. Not going to be able to keep those commands in our own strength. It's going to turn out that something is going to have to happen to our hearts so that we can become someone, right? Actually, it's going to turn out that not something is going to have to happen to our hearts. Someone is going to have to happen to our hearts, which we'll talk about, so that we can become a person who can keep the commands from the heart by the Spirit, not in our own strength. This is why the call of Scripture is to be conformed to the image of Christ. It's a heart thing.